a lot more quickly. These sort of overarching queries. They're now charging for their service. And so all of our stuff that was using it for free now are now broken. And so I've been in the process of fixing all that. Yeah, my interests are collaborative file systems, stuff like that. Doing away with the copyright system. I would love to see that become a thing of the past. Yeah, curious about WebSockets. I wonder, does anyone know how they relate to push notifications? Like when I sign up for, if I let the site send me push notifications, that's not using WebSockets. Is that using polling, or does anyone know how those work?
You mean on a mobile phone, push notifications?
No, well, no, you go to, like some sites, when you go to the site and says this site would like to send you notifications.
Oh, yeah.
And there's some sort of API for web-based push notifications. I don't know, because I know that HTTP2 you can have an open socket or an open TCP connection. And so I didn't know if it uses that or what.
Yeah, so I know it's a permission they ask for. I've seen it too. You've probably seen it too. Like Google Calendar asked for it, and I think coming in from the server or from another client is using WebSockets, like almost certainly. And then whether they choose to notify you with a pop-up or are able to notify you with a pop-up because of that permission, I think that's a web API that may be like HTML5 or later. But I know what you're talking about. So I think it's WebSockets on the incoming to the browser, incoming to the client code, and then their ability to notify you with a toast, they used to call them, or a pop-up. That's I think a browser level permission and API. Yeah, that's cool. And then you said for metagame, what service was being charged for that you wanted to migrate off of?
The graph. Have you ever heard of the graph?
Oh, yeah. Great branding name.
Yeah,
call yourself it.
Yeah. Big service. Yeah, we use it for looking up down memberships. We use it for tracking our the seed values, like who has how many of what of our tokens and stuff like that. Because with Ethereum, you can request events from the past, but most RPC endpoints limit how far back you can go into the past. And so you have to have something that has the whole history in order to do some operations. And that's what the graph has been great for. It's just now, the only point that I have for pricing is we have a guy who has been running, he says he has a query every 10 seconds, and he says it's been running for about a week, and it's costing him about $10. So it's not terribly expensive, but it's definitely not free anymore.
Yeah, $10 a month, $10 a week adds up for sure. Yeah, I'm trying to do some GraphQL stuff from Uniswap, which is this decentralized exchange, and it's kind of like an index. So it's like you've abstracted away the indexing part of the blockchain or any large data source, but it's used for blockchain projects. And I hope you can self-host. I know GraphQL is an open standard. You know, it's based on work from Facebook, and supposedly they use it internally. It's supposed to be the evolution of REST API. So instead of being querying a single endpoint with a single route, a lot of people are learning about routes on Next.js, which are the parts after the domain name and the slash in the URL. So instead of having sort of like one web object, semantic object per route in GraphQL, you can have like these very rich structures or hierarchies where, you know, you could have I don't want to use a Pokemon example because I actually don't know a lot about Pokemon. I guess you could use like Marvel superhero example. So, you know, you have Marvel superheroes and they have their own properties, but they also like band together in groups. You could have like the Avengers and the X-Men. And you can make very sophisticated queries, like give me all the X-Men who were born in Germany or something like that. And you basically make all of your web app, you can sort of, a lot of your data query you can offload onto the server, and it's an open standard. I think the most famous one is Apollo server. And so I hope Metagame is able to self-host to save money. And also, like, I want to still learn GraphQL, and I don't want to give it up just because the one company is deciding to charge for it.
You're breaking up for me.
Oh, sorry, my voice kind of trailed off, so I'll move the microphone closer. Duke and Jeff, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I can go. I go by Duke. I'm in Detroit. I'm on the brink of doing irreversible damage to my laptop for the coding problem.
Well, that's not good. Don't do that. What are you learning? What technologies are you using to do irreversible damage to your laptop?
So the same problem I was telling you about yesterday, but using Express and was it Express? Oh, I forget. Express and MongoDB. Yeah.
Right. So I will show off Duke's repo, GitHub, Duke242. He is working on
I'm in the process of reviewing your pull request, learner.
Yeah, using a templating engine called EJS, which our new friend Brian, that's the great thing about the meetup. We're always like learning new things, and sometimes it feeds into my ADD-ness, but they're usually, I don't think I've regretted any of these topics. They've usually been really great stuff. I've learned a lot about Vite and Next.js from Disbulik and EJS from Brian Moore and Vercel. He's been doing a lot of stuff with Vercel. He like learned about serverless functions, and when you upload, the API is run in a serverless way. So if you can't just whitelist, you can't just allow list one of the Vercel hosts. You need to find like all 50 of them and allow list all of them to Postgres, your database, because you don't know which one the query is going to be coming from. You know, the API is, it's kind of like doing automatic sharding for you. But anyway, those are cool technologies I've learned from them. And then EJS, Duke's been working on variable substitution. Yeah, so if people are learning that or interested, feel free to reach out to him. And then, Jeff, do you mind saying a few things about yourself? Or more than a few things, but some things.
I think Jeff dropped.
Oh, okay.
I was saying Brian is in the process of converting his EJS to React so they can use Next.
He's in the process of converting his Next.js to
his EJS templates.
Oh, I see.
He's switching them to React so that he can use Next.
Great. Well, I'm a React fan. I'm not a fan of everything Facebook does, but I am a fan of React, and I think EJS is fine. But that's all templating engines are. They're just like for what they do, which is simpler layouts that don't require the full power of, you know, responsive web components.
That's what it is, because you can't really, like if I want to update just part of the page, like with Socket.io, if I got some new data in, with EJS, I have to re-render the entire template, right?
Yeah, I think you do have to refresh the page, and then that's a good question. So relating it back to our topic today, if you're using EJS and you want to have WebSocket real-time goodness, how would you do it? You would probably have to do it in JavaScript. You have to write your own, like, you could use Socket.io, which is a library on top of the WebSocket protocol, and then you subscribe to changes, and when the changes come in, you would have to have JavaScript that calls the DOM, and but then at that point, if you're manipulating the DOM with vanilla JavaScript, you don't have any EJS magic on top of it. So I think it's difficult. Yeah, I don't know if it's possible, but we can see, like, you know, if you want to use EJS WebSocket, such a thing may not exist. There are some Stack Overflow questions, so I won't attempt it for sure, but I think it is good to move to React. Well, I hope Jeff comes back and joins us, or he has a good rest of his evening. And I'm going to log into our shared server now. And yeah, if people have trouble hearing me because I'm talking too softly or too far away, or my screen is not readable, please give a shout. I always appreciate it, so that I'm doing something that's interesting and useful. So we have an AWS server. And it's running on a free account, so it's close to the 750 free hours a month. And it's an alternate camp to those using Google Cloud. I started out, so I like it, and that's not the only one. And I run tmux, so that there's like leftover DevOps tasks, like when you log in, and anyone can do this. I think this Bullock has his authorized key. I can show you the people who have authorized keys. So John Herrera and Jeff were part of helping me set it up. So there are 3 keys on here. So those people, Jeff, John, this Bullock, and I guess this one is the Amazon supplied key. So all you have to do is generate your SSH key. And I'll post some videos later in case you've never done it before, but if you've worked with me, I probably peer pressured you into doing it. I'm going to add my key from this computer. And again, it is totally safe-ish to reveal your public key among friends, especially if you're getting something out of it, like access to a shared server. And it's not a very powerful server, but it runs our bots and our website, codewithfriends.dev. Someone commented it out. Okay, this might be the last time. I think it's one of Jeff's other accounts. So that's cool. I think when people log in outside of our meetups, say again.
Should we be seeing the screen?
Yes. Are you not seeing a screen?
No.
Great, thank you. That's exactly the feedback.
So your key is safe.
Well, not anymore. I'm not going to reveal it again. Second time. So if you didn't get it the first time, turn on your open CV computer vision screen grabbies. So here are the public keys of people who can generate them at any time, which I encourage them to. And send me your keys as well. So your key is located at cat //.ssh ID _, and then depending on which crypto system you use. I prefer ECDSA. There's also ED25519, I think it is. These are all like elliptic curves.
Just RSA.
And there's RSA also, which is less quantum resistant, or like requires a bigger key size. A few years ago, whenever I was studied the problem more, 4096 was the bare minimum, and then since then people have cranked it up even further. So it's a huge key size, and the comparative key size for elliptic curves is shorter. So instead of like 4 kilobytes of key, it's 100 bytes or 200 bytes. So that they'll all be security, just matter. It'll be correct eventually. It's just how much inconvenience and key size you have as the user versus how much work it is for the NSA or Vladimir Putin or some competing government to crack your keys. Okay, so let me see if the socket server, that's the bot that's running, and more bots. Or here we can probably clean up some bots too. And then what we set up last time was we proxied WebSockets through a Let's Encrypt certificate, so a TLS certificate to get WSS. So you might know that HTTP has a secure version called HTTPS, and that means it establishes this handshake, which encrypts a lot of things, including the actual content, but not a lot of the metadata of what websites you're browsing. And so then you can feel safe about sending your credit card numbers to Amazon and shopping and logging into your healthcare website. And then so WebSockets is a protocol that runs on top of HTTP. And I don't know if anyone has a favorite like WebSocket starter. I bet WebMDN has like a pretty good. Well, that's about the high level concept itself. Well, I don't have one. If anyone has one that they like, let me know. There's definitely like RFC. It's probably this one, which describes how it's implemented, but it is kind of a super application protocol on top of HTTP. So it uses HTTP first, which is what your web browser uses to establish this extra connection. And then they do things like polling. They have abstract way polling to sort of get real-time notifications whenever information is transferred, and also the two-wayness. So you can subscribe and you can also emit. Whereas for the web, that it's you have to initiate requests to get responses. So it's kind of a semi-duplex or half duplex in that sense. Whereas the way you program WebSockets, you can treat it as fully duplex. It's like both sending and receiving. And you can, WSS is the secure version of HTTPS and exactly the same. I don't know the details, but I think it may just use HTTPS to establish a channel for WebSockets. And I use a web server called Nginx. And Let's Encrypt, which is it's an implementation of this interactive protocol called ACME by the Electronic Freedom Foundation. And that's also a great future meetup, like the inventor of Let's Encrypt. But now anyone can have their own certificate. And what do they call it? Sites available default. Okay, so we won't go over how to run Let's Encrypt, but it's a cool protocol. You can look it up. It has a bot written in Python to automate the exchange to get you the certificate. But once you have it, you'll save in something called /Etsy/Let's Encrypt. Not Etsy, the handmade yarn sweater website, but Etsy, etc. The Unix directory where you store configuration files. And we listen on port 8888, and then I proxy it locally to port 8889. And so in the firewall, we only open 8888. And so we kind of strongly encourage and then refuse connections. Otherwise, if you don't go through these allowed ports like 8888, if you don't speak SSL to 8888, it's gonna, give you error code. Hey, Hunter, welcome.
Am I interrupting? I thought we were going to meet at 8.
No, you're right on time. So we're talking about WebSockets, and I was just explaining some technical details, which you're just on time, which may not be necessary for you. I guess I'm describing for people who want to set up WebSockets for themselves, but I'm going to move a little faster now and just set up the server and then let you connect to it. Then we'll switch to you. We'll let you screen share, because then you can show us your code if you don't mind, and then also how would you like your client, your chessboards to connect to the server. So my goal in the first part, probably for the next 30 minutes or so, is to make a general WebSocket server. And so general, in fact, I think anyone who watching this screen share would be able to connect to it for their own apps afterwards. And I would trust them not to abuse it. Yes, can you see me sharing screen?
Is that live or Zoom or
It's Root's screen share. That's
or
right.
you?
It should be the only screen share, the only stream that's on right now. So if you see a stream where it says watch screen, you can click on that and it should be the only one.
That is live.
Yeah, it's the live route. That means that route is showing the screen live.
Okay. So I turned it on. Oh, it's so small, the writing. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I am sharing on a good. I am sharing on a high resolution screen, so unfortunately that will show up small. But thank you. That's exactly the feedback I need. I can change it to the there's a setting in a Ubuntu like display settings where you can double or triple the font size.
And are you recording?
I'm recording also.
Where are you going to put the
I always put it on YouTube, but it's usually unlisted because I don't have time to go back and scrub it for sensitive info. So that's another thing. If people like video editing, let me know. We don't need to use help because there's sometimes really useful video snippets. Like
Can you do
yeah.
Control plus?
Yeah.
Well, I guess you can do it that way too.
Does that look better, Hunter? Is the font size more readable? I can make
a
it
little bit?
I can make it even bigger.
But if you put it on YouTube, I'll have time to make it bigger and bigger and look at it.
How about now? Can you check the font size?
Yeah, it's a lot bigger. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very real.
Okay, great. We'll do RFC, reading of raw RFCs from the Internet Engineering Task Force. We'll do that some other night. It's a different kind of good time, probably requires lots of drinking. So we have a server, it's not used right now. Let me okay, some of it is standard as an Express server, but the part that we're paying attention to is this. So remember how earlier some of you saw that I opened up port 8889. So we listen on that port here, and then Nginx takes care of the encryption to WSS for us. And then here to start the server, we subscribe to events, and the events indicate different things happening to the channel. So connection is the first event, which is when clients connect. So we can subscribe to that event. The event names are just these strings. And so Hunter, when we switch to writing code on your computer, we're going to be subscribing to different events, but the same approach, it'll be similar. So what does the connection handler get? It gets the socket object. And once you get the socket object nested inside of it, we won't have to nest too deeply. That is a problem in JavaScript sometimes where you have like nesting callback hell, but it won't happen this time. On the socket, you can subscribe to what happens when you disconnect. It seems like a natural thing after you connect. Maybe you want to handle something when the user disconnects, and all we do is print user disconnected in this case, and these messages get printed out on the server, which we can log and save for record keeping or to debug when things go wrong. And then we can, that's one event. Another event is this generic message, and this can be used to implement custom channels. So it doesn't have to be chat message. It can be anything. In fact, I think there are reserved events, and we can look up in the socket.io documentation what they are. But as long as your channel is not called connection or disconnect, you can use it to pass messages. So this one is for chat message, but I'm going to, you make up a channel name, Hunter. What would you like to call your game channel?
I haven't even thought about it. I just want to learn how to do
Well, I'll call it Hunter-test for now. So when you're sending a message from your chess game, you're going to use this channel, and then what this does is anytime it receives a message, the handler for this message takes the message itself, and I believe this is just text, the body of the message, and then it emits. So it calls emit on the connection object, which is called IO. It emits on the same channel. So a channel is something that both clients and servers can listen to, bidirectional, and it just repeats out the channel. So this is not just for the client that sent the message, but for any other clients. So what I'm imagining is that if you have two clients connected to a browser, hopefully I can find a free drawing program that doesn't require you to log in. So too complicated, so just blank diagram. So in your mind, the picture to have is that you have the server running socket IO. So this is the server code with friends.dev. And it is running, it's listening on port 8888. And that's necessary later. Whenever you connect to it, you'll need to know the host. So you'll be connecting to it using WSS / code with friends.dev 888 8. And then your chess code, let's say is your chess code available online? Is that 98centlesson.com, right? Okay. So 98cent lesson, and I'm going to just make up the page is to serve. It's all your JavaScript code and stuff you can get off this HTML page called chess.html. And then two users, with their browsers are going to be these other computers. So I'm going to call this, player one, and let's say they're running Mozilla, and then player two is
It looked like when you click on the circle that there's a text associated with the circle.
You're right. A lot of drawing programs have text built in, so maybe I don't need to add an extra.
Yeah. Either way.
Yeah. Good call. Okay, so what is happening here? The players will be first going to, they'll both be typing into their browsers, player one and player two. They're going to type in 98cent lesson chess.html, and they're going to pull an HTML page down, and then the page is going to run in their browsers, and then in the code, it's going to tell them to make a connection to the chat server as well, and subscribe to the channel, which we created called Hunter Chess. That was the channel we used. And then anytime someone, one of the player types a message, so that's one thing we'll think about is like, what is a good game message, but it's usually something short. Like, you know, you can say, it's been a while since I played chess, and to make up like, you know, king to rook 9 or something. I don't know if that's a valid chess move, but we'll say like that might be one move, and it might be from the white player. And so I like JSON, kind of like the basic language of web apps. And so I would frame it as, you know, let's say player 1 is the white player, and there are 2 keys in this object. Let me drag it out. Okay, so it looks like this in JSON. 2 keys, player, and the move, and this is all in text, so we stringified. It's sent to the chat server. The chat server is going to repeat it back to any other connected client, so it would be the same even if there is player 3. Oops. Yeah, so there's a player 3 connected. I know there's not 3-player chess, but there's, you know, there's like kibitzing, people watching games. So if they're subscribed to the same channel, hunter-chess, they would get the messages repeated too. And so incoming message, the server doesn't do anything. As you saw, it's a very dumb server. It's like, you know, 10 lines of code tops. And the part for Socket.io is, you know, like 5 lines. So it would get back that message, which would be, you know, which player moves and what the move is. And you might think of other useful things like what the sequence, what the move number is, you know. Like if the game is 50 moves, I don't know if is that a long chess game, 50 moves, or is that, I used to play Go, and definitely those games can last like 100 moves, 200 moves. So anyway, we can make up the protocol, but that gets repeated out. And then the JavaScript code, which is running in all of these players' browsers, its job is to interpret this message. So it receives a string, it'll parse the string, it'll probably call json.parse and get back an object, and then, you know, update the board state. Like the board is going to be like a DOM object with like grids, you know, maybe using Flexbox, maybe using other kinds of layout tools, but that's the general architecture to keep in mind as we're learning, because we're going to be going deep into some syntax, you know, as I'm typing with you, and it may be it's going to be a lot to take in. So as long as you keep this in your mind with what we're doing, then I think it'll make sense. Okay, well, let's see if the server is ready. And so what I'll do first is I'll just write a client. And so the documentation, if you're going to read along, is just at https://socket.io. And we did the server part, you know, we did that with John and Jeff before, several weeks ago. And then the client part will be from here. So the client inside an HTML is going to have a script tag. The script is going to load this, and I'll get you the CDN. So these files are hosted on a content delivery network, and you can include them. You don't need to host these files locally. And then inside another script tag, which will add to be of type text/JavaScript, just to be super explicit. There are other kinds of languages now, and then like CoffeeScript and their modules, but we're doing just plain JavaScript. You're going to create a socket object from this IO class, and then this registers a connection. So I guess what we want to look for is a custom host to connect to, and then how to emit to it. So in this example, we've created the socket, and then if the user clicks on a submit button, and you can set this event handler on your chessboard too. So on your chessboard, you probably have click handlers. You probably have an add event listener on different squares or different pieces for click. And so for those event handlers, inside of those, you would call socket.emit, and then here for the channel, you would call it hunter-chess, and then you would pass in the value, which is the JSON object that we created. You could say the player's color and the move number, and then timestamp, anything else that you think might be relevant for your game. And then elsewhere in the same JavaScript code, we would subscribe to the message hunter-chess, and then at the beginning we would just like console.log the message, but it is, then you would parse the message. So this is the other side. This is receiving the message. You would parse it, and you would get out the player color and the move, and then update the DOM, like update the board, the game board accordingly. So that's the procedure. And then I'm going to test it by making a website running on this local computer. So not the server. I know, like sitting on a screen share, it's hard to keep track of like which computer is which, but in one terminal, we're logged into the server, and then I can show you an example of the code that connects to it. So it is going to be, this is a Vite React TypeScript app, and maybe I put it in index.html. Yeah. No. Here it is. Okay. So it's these lines I'll highlight to pay attention to, and you'll have something similar in your code, Hunter. In fact, I'll copy and paste this into the Discord channel, but you're going to, if you have a scriptive type module, this is like a newer syntax, you can import directly from the CDN. So at this URL, this is going to be the whole socket.io library. And then we're going to open a connection, and the server we're going to connect to is called codewithfriends.dev port 8888. And then afterwards, we can say we want to call socket emit and the channel name. And it's going to be we can stringify an object, so it would be something like this. And then we also can, we want to identify the browser, I guess, like we want, if two browsers are loading the same page, we want like a login name or something to distinguish them. Yeah, I'll start a new web page just so we're not like cluttering up this one too much. call this WebSocket example player 1. And we won't include this other stuff just to simplify it. So we'll have player white just send the message, connect and send the message, and then not repeat back. Excuse me. And then we'll have another player, a black player or player 2. Will subscribe and receive the message and then do something different. So it would be a socket on Hunter chess, and then the handler method, which takes message, and at the beginning it would just print out the message. So I'm going to open up the pages that we created. If I can see this keyboard. There we go. It is in. Nope. Need to save it locally. Good, they're short. I can just like copy and paste. Okay, and then so Firefox will try and load what I put inside of WebSocket demo, assuming, yeah, I can find it. So there are errors. That's interesting. It's good to know. Okay, I think I did not start the server yet. I think that's why it's getting those errors. Good feedback. If it worked on the first try, that would have been a rare case. So to start this server, I start here. It's listing on that port. I'll try refreshing. More cross origin or errors. So what is this saying? Oh, I believe it's because I'm loading from a static page and not from not a secure connection. So Yeah, well, then the concern is that if Hunter's page is, if it's served from a secure server, then we can make it work. And if not, we'll just do the example tonight and then worry about the security and the certificates later.
Real quick, can you show me those errors one more time? Is it a CORS error? Can you specify a header from the server?
So I think it's because I'm trying to access this page locally, just like a static page.
Yeah.
And it's trying to access a secure resource. And but you're saying, so it's not from a server. If I were running a server, you're saying I could add a header for core.
Would that access control allow origin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could. Like if I were running the Python built-in HTTP server, I don't know if that specifies cores, but if I were running my own server, I could add that header.
Hang on, let's see. So just trying to comprehend. CORS has always been a little bit magical to me.
Same, it's hasn't lost its black magic. What I was going to do is something much dumber, which is that these static files are built and served here in var www.html. So anyone who logs into the shared server, for sure, you can just serve random files that you want to be accessible from Code with Friends. So if I want to serve these files, they're called index1 and index2.html. So if I go to codewithfriends.dev, I'm just going to call from the root route, the name. So this happens sometimes if you need to make a file publicly available. I did this once. I was like on a Zoom call with Detroit with this like home renovation seminar, and the host couldn't distribute this PDF file to people easily. And so I just uploaded it to a public server and then gave people the link. And so if you upload, law.pdf to the document root, you can tell people to access it at the host name. Here, our host name is codewithfriends.dev. It's available for any of us to use. We should just be able to access it like this.
That's what I was thinking. I think you're still gonna get it. I think it wants the header from the server.
Yes. So I guess, like, do you know how to do it in Nginx, or
can the Express server specify a header in Express?
Oh, you're right. So the server is, yeah. Okay. So my apologies in advance to Hunter and everyone else watching. This did not turn out to be the simple example I thought it would be. So we'll get something to work, but it may not be the. Don't worry if it's not one that is like immediately useful or accessible to you. We'll we might have to have another session once we work out the kinks. So what this is suggesting is that here in the Express server, we can serve pages here. So, for example,
well, what I'm suggesting is that, well, not that you serve the page using your Express server, but that for the HTTPS connection to 8888, for that connection, that you put a header.
Let's see how those two things. Well, so one of them is served from Nginx, and I guess so. I'm going to look up the configuration for something. It's either going to be how to send the CORS header in Nginx or how to send the CORS header in Express.
I would look up how to set a header in Nginx in Express rather.
if I do it in Express, okay, so you're saying it's because it's trying to establish this WebSocket connection. And then
it just makes HTTP request to 8888. Is the beginning of the WebSocket process, and I think it's wanting that header on that connection. If you go to the network tab, is there in the developer tools in the browser? Yeah, it's on that. Well, hang on.
you're right, it is to port 8888, so it's not.
But what /socket.io? Do you need a HTTP before? Is that where you're importing the library? I think I missed that step.
Yeah, so the
add or what? How is that library being pulled in?
from a CDN, so that's.
Can you look at that URL that you're using for the CDN?
Yeah, it's going to be minified, so I don't know if it's going to be super readable, but we'll do it.
Well, no, I guess you're using require socket.io, so it should be.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Yeah. So I think we're trying to figure out like what server needs to allow cores cross.
Well, I'm wondering why the path is /socket.io in the network tab.
Oh, because that's what that's the convention of Socket.io, the library. So if you read the documentation for Socket.io.
So when you request from the CDN, is it like doing a redirect to a different file? I don't see /socket.io in any of your paths.
The server library is what Nginx accepts the requests. So I'll show you the Nginx configuration. So if it receives something at
it's proxying, but it's proxying your server over HTTPS.
Yeah, so if it receives something /_ WebSocket. Oh, I thought for sure this was the Socket.io.
Okay.
So it's gonna. Oh no, this is not. Sorry, don't look at that one. It's not the right one. This is the right one. So. Oh, again, Socket.io disappeared. Okay, so it doesn't show up here, but it is from the documentation reading of Socket.io that. Well, I guess the user doesn't even really need to know this, but. Yeah, well, maybe it would help to show an example where it already works, which is if you go to the public website. Oh, well, now there are console errors here now too. I swear this worked for sure. So it's before, now it's complaining about cross origin. Why is that? I think maybe it was all.
It's a 502, which is a server error as well, right?
So yeah, application.
What's this /? Yeah, it's the /socket.io that stopped me from for at least a minute.
Let me make sure that I left the server running because I think I took it down. Those are bots. Okay, I think I did take the server down. So yeah, no, it's listening because there's no conflicts. It doesn't say error. Some other connection was bound. And still errors, unfortunately.
But you did get a status code of 200, so you got a response this time.
Yeah, and actually, well, somehow I don't always manage to present what I meant to present, but I think what we have time to do is to show at least a WebSocket message getting through. And
Paul,
yes,
if I can interrupt, I hate to interrupt.
please feel free. Yeah. I have no idea whether what I'm saying or doing is useful if I don't hear from people. So.
Hold on. First, okay, so I looked at this. I looked at IO, Socket IO.
Okay.
I looked at it.
Okay.
I was looking for all you were doing, but I wrote to come.
Great.
It worked. You get two browsers, and when you write something, it hosts it in one browser.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the other browser, you use the command line to run the server. So you run the server is running, and then it tells you it's listening on the server, and it tells you whatever host you set it to. Like I set it to host 880. Then you open up another browser, and you set that one to host 880. And then when you send your code using the syntax that you're showing here, it works. It just works. Okay.
Great.
Good.
Do you?
So we don't.
Okay.
Hold on. You were telling me about AWS. So I looked at AWS, and it's really complicated. There's a lot of stuff I got to look at it a lot more. But that's how you set up a server. I think that's what you did to set up your server. Is that correct?
Yes, and you're totally welcome to use this server, except for this error.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, so what you're saying is that our group can use that server
Yes.
to send information across the internet. Okay.
Yes.
But again, what I want to do eventually is create my own AWS server.
Mhm.
I mean, it's going to be nice to use your server, but I'm not going to say it like that. Okay, it's nice to use your server, but eventually I would like to use my own server. I know you can get one for free.
Yes.
And then if you want to, you can buy one. Okay.
Well, it's free for the first year, and if you keep the usage under 750 hours per month, which then it's free for 1 year. That's all. Please go ahead.
Right. So but see, that's fine because it's like learning how to do this. If I want to use more hours, it's because I started a business and now I want more, and then I'm going to be willing to pay for it.
Yeah, that's true.
So what I want to do, what I would like all of us to do, if it's possible, is to go through the whole process, setting up the server. Then when we set up the server, you're talking about my chess game. I want to do something really simple, like tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe is very simple, very easy, because like you said, with chess, trust me, the chess library, we could be a year. Okay, but simple tic-tac-toe. Put it on the server so that two people can play tic-tac-toe. I think, and then we should record it. This is the way you set up your AWS server. Then when you set it up, we do the simple tic-tac-toe game for everybody, right? Tic-tac-toe. This is the HTML file. This is the JavaScript code. This is what you have to do. We record it. And then everybody should be able to go through it and follow it. That was my vision. Is that a bad vision for everybody? We've got like 5 people here. Duke, EYS, yeah. Does that sound like a useful use of our time? Nobody.
There might be something further down the line. I think that for myself, I would like to start off, like you said, you want to start off with tic-tac-toe, which is easier than chess. And the project that I proposed was just pulling API information from Reddit and be able to broadcast that out. Yeah, eventually we may want to do that outside of the code from server.
What you're saying is more complicated. You're talking about doing APIs, which everybody might not know. What I want to do is something really, really simple. This is the way you make the server. This is the way you send information. Once we do that, with some research, you should be able to do what you want to do. You want to do something a little more complicated. You want to get, I look at APIs and whatever. You want to get APIs fetch, send information across the server. If we do a simple tic-tac-toe game, there's just two people can connect to the server, look at an HTML file, and step through it. You should be able to then look at that example and do what you want to do.
Well, if I can interrupt, I think actually they're of equal difficulty of the average level of people on this channel. So to fetch an API from subreddit is probably about the same as making a tic-tac-toe game, which actually is maybe of the two, tic-tac-toe is more complicated because if you want to have a UI, which you can click on and have X's and O's, it's I would say it's slightly more complicated. So but they're both good projects. So I would say that you're both welcome to try and convince the other person or convince anyone. We started the profiles of what people are interested in, so we can add that in. It was your suggestion, Hunter, several weeks ago to have a profile so that people could tell who was interested in what. And so we have that now. It's a document. It's not in its final form, but it is there. So it's something where we can go to it, and people have added, here's a grid, and Hunter, you're here, where it says you're working on a multiplayer chess server with tutoring features. Jeff's here with his programmer's humor Reddit API, and then other people as we add. So people can read this and tell what people are interested in, what they're reading, and please feel free to connect after the session is over. We're all still on the Discord server. We're all on the meetup. So yeah, please continue using what you learn. And then those of us who have a desire to teach or present, we'll try and think of concepts that might be useful. So even though I didn't get the Socket.io part working across the public server and with the certificate tonight, Hunter, you're able to get it working locally, which is great. So I would say, it may be slow, but we'll continue proceeding that way. But if anyone else has anything to add about your idea.
Real quick,
Yeah.
in the video, in the chat for the video.
Yeah.
I posted, it says that as of V3, you have to have this course set up in order for it not to error out on course.
Oh, wonderful.
So, and it gives how to set it up. So wherever the video, if you click on right below voice connected, or you can scroll through it.
Oh,
But
nice.
it's when you require Socket.io, apparently you can have it through the configuration.
Oh, wonderful. This is exactly what we need. So if we require from the CDN IO here, then we can create from it. What is HTTP server? Do you know?
Well, this is for the WebSocket server. Because it's complaining about,
Yes, I see what you mean.
it's the server connection that needs to have the header.
Thank you. You are bringing the element of emotional satisfaction, as much as I would feel bad about ending the session for all y'all who have been so patient without giving you some emotional satisfaction. So you're saying here we
Literally on line, well, you have line numbers, but line like 6 or whatever, where you require socket.io.
okay.
And see, the way that they have that set up, that returns the IO object that you're using to do the initial connection list. Rather than returning server and then doing new server like you have on line 13, it looks like it's returning IO just from that, whatever that is.
Yeah, so I guess I think maybe I want to make
Try
sure.
coming out 5 and 13 and see if it works.
Yeah, I want to make sure it's from the right version because before it was returning an object and we were destructuring, we were selecting out the server part and then calling that as constructor, but then here we're requiring it and then calling it as a constructor or calling it as a function.
And you would change HTTP server to just server since that's what when you do the create server. At the end of line 6, you have HTTP server, which is going to be undefined. You called it just server on line 4.
Yeah.
And then you're accessing it at the end of line 6.
I see.
Okay, if I can interrupt again.
Sure.
Originally, I made this request. Question. I know you have a server.
Yes.
And you said, that means you've done this before, right? You've done this where you put your code on the server and 2 people can access it. That's the question.
That's right.
You've done it.
Yes. Yeah. And so people who have set up the key, like Dispulic, can log onto the server and edit it with me right now. We're using a program called TMUX, Terminal Multiplexer. So this green bar you see on the bottom of the screen means that it's running, that people can join it and attach to it remotely.
Okay, so then my question becomes, if this code is there and it works already, why are we rewriting it again?
Well, I am trying. Well, we're trying to get it to run already. Oh, that's interesting. Keep saying a user is connected, and then I was showing the examples, and then just to illustrate how to do it for your own code, because this is not in the chess program. And then there are 2 parts. There's a server and a client, and so there was the server we can make general purpose. So that's why I was creating a special channel for you, Hunter. But anyone could have just said like, "Hey, can you make a channel for me called, Jeff Programmer's Humor or something?" And then I would have added a channel for that. And so the WebSocket server is very simple. I know it doesn't seem that way with all these cross-origin errors, but once you get up and running, it's the simple part. And then people can write their own diverse clients. And so it's not that we're duplicating work. I'm trying to write the server once in a way that other people can use it. And once we fix it with these suggestions from Dispulic, it may work. So I'm going to give it another shot.
So you write one server and everybody uses that server?
For WebSocket, yeah. And, it's not going to be scalable. Like, if you get a bunch of users or you, there'll be other problems for security for one thing, which is, like it can get overwhelmed with the number of requests. But in principle, the server is in this kind of like chat app or a multiplayer chess game. It's typically not the complicated part. All the special features that you need, like the kind of messages that you want to craft and what information to put in them and then how to interpret them for each player to draw the boards, that all that complexity would be in your client code.
And the client, right? And the
Yeah.
client. The question for the group, does anybody else intend to use this
And it's okay if not. I mean, it's here purely as a teaching example. So you don't have to use it either, Hunter, but it will be there.
No, I definitely want to use it. That's why I'm asking the question. I asked for this. I definitely want to try to understand it. There are people who have a lot more expertise on this site than I do. And they're saying, well, I want to do APIs or whatever. I'm saying I simply want to see how you put code on a server that two people can see. That's simple.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So for pair programming, which people see the same code and edit it, we have been using something called Code Sandbox, which I highly recommend. And it does require you to sign in with your GitHub account. So you'll need a GitHub account, but once you have one, then two people can see the same website. It's geared for websites, so it's for things like React, and it can be for static websites like your chess website. I guess technically would count as static because you have JavaScript and HTML and CSS and no databases, as far as I can tell. Maybe you do have a database, but yeah, those websites you can host on Code Sandbox, and then someone else could pair program with you, or watch as you type and work with you that way. Or you can screen share on your own computer. So I know whatever editor you're using, whether it's VS Code or Visual Studio or Atom or some other text editor, you can share your screen like I'm doing now. So and then you can pair program that way.
I think that everybody that's here now can write the code that I'm writing in HTML, JavaScript, and CSS.
Not necessarily.
Okay, well, if they can't, they can, they can contact me, and I would gladly show them how to do it. I put examples of some of the websites that I've developed on Discord, so you can see simple games, simple JavaScript, HTML, CSS games. The test stuff is a little bit more complicated, but I'd be glad to walk people through that. That's not really why I'm here. Why I'm here is to try to find out how you do what you do. How do you put whatever code you write, whatever it is, on a server so that two people can see it? I've looked at examples.
Hang on. Exactly, what it sounds like you're asking how to serve files via the web, but don't you already have an existing website that you set up?
Yes, I have multiple websites, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'll show them here, but it's the 98-cent lesson.
yeah, no, it's just that it
Yeah.
sounded to me like you were saying, how do you put up a file so two people can see it? But it seems like you've already done that.
Yes, that's right.
No, but how two people, I should say, I stated it wrong, so that two people can interact.
Okay.
It sounds like for instance, the tic-tac-toe is a fine example. I put an X on the tic-tac-toe program. Now, the other person sees my X, they put an O. It's not like looking at the same website. Yeah,
Okay.
they go to the website and they could play tic-tac-toe, but they can't play tic-tac-toe with me. Am I
understand. Yeah, it sounded to me like you were just talking about viewing stuff, but the interactivity, that's what Learner is working on right now.
Yeah, so the missing part is the chat or the WebSocket part. So if you look at this diagram that I drew earlier,
Do you mind commenting out where you set it to serve a file?
well, hold on, I want to address Hunter's question, so we may not be able to
Okay.
multitask too much, but in this diagram that I drew, which hopefully is helpful, it is showing that you're already serving files off of 98centlesson.com. And then the part that's missing is another server that's serving the WebSocket part. And so the steps involved, you know, you're almost there already. So players go to 98centlesson.com, they load the HTML file and JavaScript and CSS, and that JavaScript tells them to connect to a WebSocket server. So that's the update that you would have to make, and depends on us getting this WebSocket part running so that you can use it and anyone else who wants to can use it. So this is the part that's missing. And then when people are in their own browsers, they are able to send messages back and forth, and it will simulate as if they were playing on the same chessboard, but not editing the same code. So I guess when you were talking before, I was making sure, were you asking how can two people edit the same code on the same website versus how can they play the finished game on the same website? And you're asking the second one.
Set up yet. We don't have this set up yet.
We are working on the second part. So this part where it says AWS server WebSockets. That's what we're working on tonight. Yes.
Forgive me, I'm clear on that.
That's okay. That's
And that was already there.
no. We would like it to be. So but I know it's at 8:16. So if people need to leave, thank you for joining us. No need to stay, but we you know the feeling where you feel like you're 99% there. You know, I used to say this to people, guaranteed success, like 99% chance of success. And it stays at 99 for a while, you know, if you have a lot of overconfidence. So now we'll go with Disc Gulick, who has already made the debugging session way more useful. So you're asking me to comment out the part where I serve this file.
Maybe it's not that, because it seems like the slash socket.io is created by.
You're right.
How
It
does
could, yeah.
IO get? Well, I guess it's now. IO is associated when you call that server, when you call after the require function on line 6, that it's creating that route on the server when it's called there. Before, I didn't understand how the slash socket.io was getting added to the server.
Yes, no, you're right, because I think what you're saying is that this serving on slash is going to interfere with this slash socket IO, which is kind of built into the library in some ways.
But I think that I was wrong. But if you go to, because you are no longer getting the cores error, you're getting now that it can't open a WebSocket.
You're right. So progress is new errors. So we've definitely moved on. And well,
you get the same error from the index1.html that you just created.
I mean, I can try, but I see. So what would be the difference? What did we change in?
I don't know. I'm just curious. It's always another data point.
It's the same. So
Yes, that was
400 bad request, and well, I could have sworn this worked when Jeff and John did it before, but all we did was, maybe it never worked, because all we did is we saw a user connected and we were like happy, and near the end of our sessions we like stopped. But it could be that we didn't open the web inspector, and this whole time this 400 bad request was still happening. But
another question.
Sure.
Okay, so the socket IO documentation is on the web, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you all went and created something with the documentation where we can see all of the stuff that Paul is writing, all of that code and how you do it is there, and it works. I know it works, right? The issue would be putting it on a server.
Well, we don't know that it works. I mean, you got something to work locally from what you told us, which is great. We're trying to put it up in a public way, which is secured so that people don't see like this warning sign. You know, when you go to websites, it has a shield to sort of let you know that you are at the website that you think you're at. So yeah, we haven't gotten that part to work yet.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Yeah. And we may not. So this may be just we covered with some WebSocket stuff, and but we did have victory. So it sounds like Hunter had success on his local host, and yeah, we may have to. This may not be doable tonight.
I got one more. Let's try this one. This is the same basic thing, except it adds those transports and credentials.
WebSocket polling.
Maybe that will have maybe that'll make a difference because it's the WebSocket they can't connect.
Yeah, that's true. I guess the Express is serving general HTTP, and then the WebSocket is like on top of that, and then there's an allow EIO3. I don't know what that means.
That one I don't know. Let me ask you.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are seeing real professional debugging techniques. It's Googling and Stack Overflow, and a lot of head scratching.
So the EIO3 is compatibility with Socket.io 2, version 2. So this is version 3 of the library. So it's backwards compatibility is what the EIO3 is.
Okay, so is it allow EIO3 through?
Yeah, I mean you should be okay since your client library is version 3 as well. You shouldn't have to have it. That's unfortunate.
Yeah. It could be that the certificate is at Nginx is not configured. So let's talk about server WSX Nginx proxy. This one seems similar. So this person, they're not using certificates. So he's using localhost. This is probably what Hunter was doing locally without their certificate. And that one, he's probably going to say works fine and adds a CORS header for localhost. And then in production, he does have a certificate, and then in Nginx Ubuntu, which is what we're using, port 443, he adds the path to the certificate, and then does he? Oh, and then this location, he proxy passes to port 5000, and then he's saying he gets his 400 bad request. And he did the same thing. So he was getting no access control allow origin before, and then he added he changed the origin to star, and then no.
Yeah, you can have a wild card for it. But you're not getting a CORS error, so I don't think it's a 400 error means something's failing in the. Well, no.
Yeah, I don't.
The 400 error is an authentication error, right?
I don't really know offhand what 400 error means.
Let me ask what HTTP 400 is.
Yeah, they are adding these headers to Nginx, so I'll try them. So this is in the same proxy pass configuration. And
okay, yep, 400 is bad request. It's just that something was not comprehended about the request.
Yeah, and it could be I don't have the certificates configured.
I mean, I would think that the Express server, I mean, you can check if you look at the response, you can see if those headers are set or not.
What would I check?
And the network tab.
So there
So
are,
go to, well, there you go. Yeah, their access control origin, allow credentials is true.
okay, so those are getting set somehow, either by the Express server, probably by the Express server, because I haven't added it to any.
Yeah, that's that little thing that you did when you required socket.io. That's what caused that to happen. That core section to the configuration.
But there are two layers of proxies. So what, I guess like maybe would it ever be required at the Nginx level, and it wouldn't work if I put it at the Express level?
I wouldn't think so, but you can try it. It's not gonna hurt.
Yeah, I don't know enough about this. Oh, did I forget to run this in super user?
While Paul is writing a question for the group, does anybody have an interactive website? Does anybody have a website that 2 people or 3 people or 4 people can access across the web?
In real time?
Yeah, in real time. You guys are professional. Well, some of you are professional, and I know you guys do different business. If you have a website and you're not like using WordPress or something, and you want to communicate to your clients or people, I want to do it because I've written some games. But also eventually, when you start your own business, this is something I think that will be very useful. You have your own server, your own website, where people can go and buy things and use things and do things, whatever you want to do. But basically, you can do it at the same time with your clients.
Not all websites require it. So, and that we have all skill levels. So I guess like one way to think about it is that everyone here is a volunteer, and some people know more or talk loudly and are overconfident, sometimes like me. And but you know, I don't think that there are a lot of assumptions you can make about everyone here. We're all here to learn. So
Of course, I don't mean to make an assumption. I don't know. A lot of times when I listen to the guys, it sounds like they're way ahead of me. You know, because they're saying things that I don't even understand, which is not a problem. But I'm trying to kind of figure out, like, it's like we didn't come with an agenda. We didn't come with an agenda saying, well, this is what we're going to do. This is what we know. This is how we're going to do it.
we did have an agenda. It's in the meeting.
I came in early because I thought we were starting at 8. So I apologize. I don't mean to constantly interrupt, but I'm just trying to get my bearings about exactly what we're doing here.
Yeah, same.
Do you mind if we just real quick verify that the libraries are the same version?
Between the client and the server.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
If you do PNPM, is it list? Well, that
It's a lot.
list the gems in the version. I don't know PNPM. In Yarn, it's Yarn list.
There's a lock file. So this one is.
Okay, so Socket is 4.6.1. What are you using on the client?
That's a good question. So how would we How would we find
It's
that?
in the URL for the CDN. It would be in the code at least. Yeah, if you just look at if you look at just the page, the source of the page. Yeah, so scroll up to where you import from the CDN. Oh, there it is. 4.3.2.
Oh, okay. So if I change it to 4.6.1,
Can't hurt. It definitely can't hurt.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, this is another reason why learning a program like now instead of the 80s is much more challenging, because you have different package numbers that every package you have can have different numbers. They can vary. Oh, and I was copying these. It's not great practice.
Still got the errors.
Yeah, I see it too. Well, I think we should take a break for tonight. I'm gonna eat my dinner and think about it. But Hunter brings up a good point in that other people have probably done this with Nginx and made a WebSocket server. And yeah, we just keep looking. Like people are curious and have time. That's a thing to Google for.
Where you go? Where are you? The video.
The video, I'll post a link to it once it's uploaded in the Discord chat. So where is a good place to put it? I'll mention your name, and so let's put it in tech events.
Tech events. Okay.
Yeah.
And Paul, you had asked me about the other group, right? So I went to the other group on Thursday, the game developers.
Oh, great.
And they're going to do something similar to what we're doing. I mean, it's like they're more advanced, but I've talked to that group and, basically asked them would they be willing. And what we're going to try to do is develop a game starting from the beginning, the very beginning, step by step, and document it so that if anybody else wants to try to develop a game, and I mean, when I say a game, these guys are doing like 3D modeling and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I would love to come to their meetup as well.
Or the group is HTML 5 game development. The one I sent you, that was the correct one.
Okay. You sent it somewhere in the Slack. I sent a link to Boston HTML5 game development asking you if that was it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
The one.
Okay, great. Well, I'll look up to see when their next meetup is, and it sounds cool. I definitely want to learn more 3D stuff, and this one,
That's the one.
yeah, it's got a lot of members, and you said third Thursday. Okay, the next one looks like May 18th, so I'll put a link to this as well. Cool. Yeah. Well, I'll see you there.
Okay.
Okay. Well, good seeing everyone. Have a good night. Enjoy your dinner or your relaxation. And
I
yes.
don't know how I missed the time.
That's okay. It happens. The Discord events, you can always check there. Up here at the top, when they say like 2 events here, you can check, like there's an event tomorrow, there's Portland's Talk, which if you're all free, you were saying how to start how to launch an AWS server from scratch, you don't have to use AWS. Cortland's going to do it on Google, which is a different cloud platform. And I know Amari uses this too. And yeah, so that's, they might be doing it from scratch. So that's, there's a lot going on. People have different expertise and they're offering, but this is where to check on the time. So it's starting at 7:30 tomorrow. And then another place is the public meetup. I keep them in sync, but it's how you found this meetup to begin with, Detroit Code with Friends. You can see the events, and our event has already passed, but it listed 6:30 today, and just like this event is 7:30 tomorrow. So you can check those two places, and they'll be kept in sync, so that just to remind yourself when things start.
Okay, and thanks everybody. Thank you for your patience with me. I appreciate it. I was just lost. It was so cool.
We all get there, and sometimes we're still there. So have a good night, everyone, and
Good night.
see you next time.
See ya.
Take care.